Daniel Wright checked his reflection one last time before stepping through the airlock. His uniform fit perfectly, pressed and clean, but he knew it would not matter much. Earth had sent him here because someone had to come, not because anyone expected great things. He was 28 years old, 5 feet 6 inches tall, and about to represent his entire species in front of creatures who could crush him without thinking twice. The space station stretched out before him like a small city floating in the void. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its edges. Some looked like metal flowers. Others resembled living creatures more than machines. Daniel had studied the files during his 3-month journey, memorizing names and cultures, but seeing it all in person made his chest tight. A guide waited for him at the entrance. The creature had blue skin and too many joints in its arms. It looked at Daniel the way someone might look at a child who wandered into an adult conversation. "Follow," it said in flat, translated speech. They walked through corridors that shifted in size to accommodate different species. Some areas had low gravity, others pumped in gases that smelled like burning metal. Daniel saw his first Dracon near the central hub. The reptilian stood over 7 feet tall with scales that caught the light like polished stone. Its eyes tracked Daniel as he passed, and its mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. The council chamber sat at the station's heart. Doors tall enough for giants opened into a circular room with floating platforms arranged in tiers. Each platform held a different species. Some sat, some stood. A few floated in containers filled with liquid. At the center, a being made of crystal hovered in the air, refracting light in every direction. "The human representative has arrived," the guide announced, then left Daniel standing alone at the entrance. Whispers started immediately. They came through his translator as overlapping voices, some curious but most amused. Daniel walked forward to his assigned platform. It sat low, barely off the ground, while other platforms rose high above him. Someone had made a choice about where humans belonged in this hierarchy. "Is that all Earth could send?" A voice boomed from above. Daniel looked up to see the large Dracon he had passed in the corridor. The creature leaned over the edge of its platform, studying him like an interesting insect. "I am Ambassador Torvin of the Draken Sovereignty. We expected someone more impressive." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not all of the representatives joined in, but enough did that Daniel felt heat rise to his face. He had prepared for this. Earth's psychologists had warned him that first contact would be difficult. Humans were small compared to most spacefaring species. They were weak by galactic standards. They died quickly, lived briefly, and had only just figured out how to leave their own solar system. The crystalline being at the center pulsed with light. "We will maintain order," it said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Council Leader Praxis. Human representative, you may present your petition." Daniel pulled out his datapad and began to read. Earth wanted trade agreements. They wanted access to galactic markets. They wanted the knowledge that other species took for granted, the technology that would help humanity grow beyond its single world. He made it through 3 sentences before the chatter started again. "Trade? What could they possibly offer?" Someone said. "Perhaps they make amusing pets." Another added. Torvin's voice cut through the rest. "The human speaks of trade, but I see nothing worth trading for. Your species has no resources we need. Your technology is primitive. Your lifespan is too short to be reliable partners. Why should this council waste time on Earth?" Daniel stopped reading. He looked up at the towering platforms, at the hundreds of eyes watching him with expressions that ranged from boredom to open contempt. His hands wanted to shake, but he forced them still. Back on Earth, he had led rescue teams into mountains during storms that could freeze a person in minutes. He had made choices that saved lives and choices that haunted him. This was just another kind of storm. Earth asks only for a chance to prove itself, Daniel said, setting aside his prepared speech. "We know we are new to this community. We know we have much to learn. But humanity did not reach the stars by giving up when things looked difficult." "How inspiring," Torvin said. The sarcasm in his voice needed no translation. "The small human has courage. Perhaps we should give Earth a participation trophy and send him home." More laughter. Daniel saw a few representatives who did not join in. They watched quietly, their expressions unreadable. Most, though, seemed to agree with Torvin's assessment. Praxis pulsed again. "The human's petition is noted. This council will consider Earth's request and provide a response in due time. This session is concluded." The platforms began to move, carrying their occupants toward different exits. Daniel stood in place, still holding his data pad. Due time could mean anything. It could mean years. It could mean never. He had come across the galaxy to be laughed at and dismissed in less than an hour. As the chamber emptied, Daniel saw Torvin talking with a group of other representatives. They kept glancing his way, and their body language spoke clearly enough. The human was a joke. Earth was a joke. Nothing would change that assessment. Daniel walked back through the corridors to his assigned quarters. The room was small but functional, located in a section of the station designated for minor delegations. He sat on the bed designed for a species with a different body shape and wrote his first report to Earth. He kept his words professional and simple. The council had received their petition. Negotiations would take time. He did not mention the laughter or the mockery. Earth needed hope, not discouragement. When he finished, Daniel lay back and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere beyond the station's walls, Earth hung in the darkness, a blue marble that seemed impossibly far away. He had 47 more weeks before another ship could reach him. 47 weeks to change minds that had already decided humans were not worth their time. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would come regardless of whether he was ready for it. 3 weeks had passed since Daniel's arrival, and each day brought new humiliations. He learned quickly that the council operated on rules that nobody had bothered to explain to him. There were sections of the station where certain species could not go. There were times when speaking out of turn meant automatic ejection from meetings. There were 1,000 small ways to fail, and Daniel seemed to find them all. Ambassador Torvin had made it his personal mission to remind everyone that humans did not belong. During a trade discussion, he had interrupted Daniel's proposal to ask if Earth had anything to offer besides amusing anecdotes. When Daniel tried to present data about Earth's rare minerals, Torvin had pulled up charts showing that 17 other worlds produced the same materials in greater quantities and better quality. The other ambassadors had nodded along, barely looking at Daniel's information. The worst part was not the public dismissals. Daniel could handle those. The worst part was watching potential allies turn away before conversations could even start. He would approach a representative after a meeting, hoping to discuss mutual interests, and they would suddenly remember urgent business elsewhere. Some would not even make excuses. They would simply walk away as if Daniel had not spoken at all. On the 24th day, Daniel arrived at a diplomatic reception in the station's eastern gallery. These events happened twice a week, chances for representatives to make informal connections away from the council chamber. Daniel had learned to arrive early and position himself near the entrance, hoping to catch people in casual conversation before they could avoid him. Tonight, a large group gathered near the viewing windows that looked out at the stars. Daniel recognized several key figures. Torvin, of course, along with Chirrut, an ambassador whose species resembled a cross between a mantis and a scorpion. Chirrut controlled shipping routes through 3 sectors. Getting his support would mean everything for Earth's trade hopes. Daniel approached slowly. He carried a glass of something the station called refreshment, though it tasted like bitter flowers. As he got closer, the conversation quieted. Several ambassadors turned to look at him. Torvin's mouth curved into that familiar predatory smile. "The human joins us," Torvin announced to the group. "Perhaps he will entertain us with more stories about Earth's modest accomplishments." "I was hoping to discuss the shipping proposal I sent to your offices," Daniel said, directing his words to Chirrut. Earth's position could serve as a useful hub for routes heading toward the outer rim. Chirrut's compound eyes reflected the starlight. The alien tilted its head, studying Daniel for a long moment. Then it stepped directly into Daniel's path, forcing him to move backward or collide with the creature's chest plates. "You stand in my space," Chirrut said. Daniel moved aside, but Chirrut moved with him, maintaining the uncomfortable proximity. Other ambassadors watched with interest. This was a test, Daniel realized. Chirrut was establishing dominance the way animals did in nature documentaries. "My apologies," Daniel said, taking another step back. "Your apologies mean little." Chirrut gestured with one of its upper limbs, the movement too fast for Daniel to dodge. The glass in Daniel's hand went flying, its contents splashing across his formal jacket. "Oh, how clumsy of me." Laughter erupted from the watching group. Daniel looked down at the stain spreading across his chest. The liquid was already starting to smell as it dried. He would have to walk through the entire station like this, past hundreds of beings who would see the evidence of his humiliation. Perhaps humans should learn grace before attempting diplomacy, Torvin said, though I suppose we cannot expect much from a species that only recently discovered fire. We discovered fire over 1 million years ago, Daniel said quietly. 1 million years, and you are still learning to walk among civilized species without spilling on yourselves. Torvin turned to the other ambassadors. This is what Earth sends to represent them. A clumsy child in an adult's uniform. Daniel wanted to respond to defend himself and his species, but he knew it would only make things worse. He had learned that much in 3 weeks. Instead, he excused himself and left the gallery. Behind him, he heard fresh laughter and knew they were sharing more jokes at his expense. His quarters had been reassigned a week ago. The station administrator, a floating blob that communicated through color changes, had explained that Daniel's original room was needed for a visiting dignitary from the Forge Collective. Daniel's new quarters sat on the maintenance level, next to the waste recycling systems. The noise made sleep difficult, and the smell was something he was still getting used to. He changed out of his stained jacket and sat on the floor. The bed had broken 2 days ago, and maintenance had not responded to his repair requests. Daniel suspected they never would. A chime at his door broke the silence. Daniel opened it to find Olus, one of the station keepers. The old being had 4 arms and skin like weathered leather. Olus maintained the garden domes where different species grew food from their homeworlds. I heard about the reception, Olus said, entering without invitation. Chirik is a bully. Torvin is worse. They smell weakness and attack. I'm not weak, Daniel said. No, but you are small and alone. In this place that is the same thing. Olus settled onto the floor across from Daniel. The council respects only strength. Not strength of body necessarily, though that helps. Strength of will. Strength of reputation. You have none of these things yet. How do I get them? That is the question every new species must answer. Olus pulled something from a pouch and handed it to Daniel. It was a fruit, purple and roughly the size of an apple. From the garden. Earth plants are growing well, by the way. The tomatoes are especially vigorous. Daniel took the fruit. Thank you. You were a soldier before this, Olus said. It was not a question. Rescue specialist. I led teams into dangerous places to find people who were lost or hurt. And you lost people. Daniel nodded. He did not trust himself to speak about that. So you chose diplomacy, thinking it would be safer, less painful. Olus stood, moving toward the door. But every profession has its dangers. Here the wounds are just harder to see. After Olus left, Daniel sat in the darkness of his quarters and ate the fruit. It tasted sweet and familiar, like a piece of home in this hostile place. He thought about the people he had lost on that mountain, about the choices he had made and the choices that had been made for him. He had come here hoping to build something better, but all he had built was a pile of failures. His datapad showed 42 messages from Earth, government officials wanting updates, news organizations wanting interviews, family wanting to know if he was safe. Daniel answered none of them. What could he say? That humanity's first diplomat spent his time being mocked and sleeping on the floor next to garbage processors. He pulled up the files he had brought from Earth. Pictures of mountains and oceans, videos of people laughing, recordings of music. All the things that made humanity special, at least to humans. None of it mattered here. The galaxy did not care about Earth's beauty or culture. It cared about strength and resources and what you could offer in trade. Daniel closed the files and lay down on the floor. Through the wall, he could hear the waste recyclers humming. Somewhere above, the ambassadors were probably still laughing about the clumsy human who could not even hold a glass properly. Tomorrow he would wake up and try again. He would attend meetings where no one listened. He would send proposals that no one read. He would represent a species that no one respected, but he would not quit. That was the one thing he knew for certain. Whatever else happened, whatever new humiliations waited around the next corner, he would not quit. Humans did not reach the stars by knowing when to give up. The council chamber felt different today. Daniel noticed it the moment he entered. Representatives who normally ignored him were watching closely. Conversations stopped as he walked to his platform. Even Praxis, the crystalline leader, pulsed with a color Daniel had not seen before. Something dark red like old blood. Torvin stood at his platform with his arms crossed. Next to him stood a creature Daniel did not recognize. It was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with muscles that looked carved from stone. Scars covered its gray skin in patterns that might have been decorative or might have been from real battles. Its eyes were solid black, no pupils visible. "We have a matter of some importance to address," Praxis said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "Ambassador Torvin has raised a formal challenge to Earth's petition for council consideration." Daniel felt his stomach drop. He had read about formal challenges in the station records, but those entries were thousands of years old. No one used that system anymore. It was a relic from when the council first formed, before civilized discourse replaced barbarism. "I invoke the ancient protocols," Torvin said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Humanity has wasted this council's time for nearly a month. They offer nothing of value. They possess no strength worth respecting. I propose a trial by station law to determine if Earth deserves even the smallest consideration." Murmurs spread through the assembly. Some representatives looked uncomfortable. Others leaned forward with interest. Daniel saw Olus in the observers section, the old keeper's face creased with worry. "Explain the terms," Praxis said, though its tone suggested it already knew what was coming. "Simple. The human will face an opponent of my choosing in the station's arena. 1 rotation, by our time standard. If he survives, Earth's petition will be heard with full consideration. If he fails, Earth withdraws its petition permanently and does not return to this council for 100 of their years." Daniel's mind raced. 1 rotation meant roughly 6 hours by Earth time. The arena was a relic like the challenge itself, a place where ancient species had settled disputes through combat. It still existed in the station's lower levels, maintained as a historical site. He had seen it once during a tour, a circular pit surrounded by observation decks. "This is barbaric," someone said from the upper platforms. Daniel could not see who spoke. "We abandoned such practices millennia ago." "The protocols remain in our charter," Torvin replied. "Any member species may invoke them when dealing with a potential new member. The human can refuse, of course. Earth simply loses all opportunity to join the galactic community. Forever." Daniel understood the trap. If he refused, Earth would be labeled as cowards. If he accepted and lost, the same result. But if he refused, there would be no chance at all. At least fighting gave him a possibility, however small. "What happens if I win?" Daniel asked. Torvin's laugh boomed through the chamber. "If you win, human, you face Grell, champion of the war clans of Tormus. He has fought in 300 arena matches across a dozen worlds. He has never lost. You are a diplomat, small and soft. There is no scenario where you win. But if I did," Praxis pulsed, considering. "If you survive the rotation, your species will be granted full council consideration, immediate trade negotiations, technology sharing, full membership track. The challenge demands equal stakes." Daniel looked at Grell. The warrior had not moved or spoken. He simply stood there like a statue carved from violence. 300 matches. Never lost. Daniel had taken self-defense courses and kept himself in decent shape, but he was not a fighter. Not like this. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people depending on what happened here, about the children who would grow up either with the stars within reach or forever trapped on one small world, about the crews working on new ships, the scientists dreaming of new discoveries, the future that hung on his answer. "When?" Daniel asked. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouting in languages the translator could not keep up with. Praxis pulsed bright white, calling for order. "You accept?" Torvin seemed genuinely surprised. "When?" Daniel repeated. "You have 48 hours to prepare. The challenge will be broadcast to all member species. Refuse any time before entering the arena and the terms stand. Earth withdraws its petition." "I understand." Praxis addressed the assembly. "Let it be recorded. The human Daniel Wright accepts the challenge on behalf of Earth. In 48 hours, the trial will commence. This council is adjourned." The platforms began to disperse. Daniel stood frozen in place, trying to process what he had just agreed to. 48 hours. 2 days to prepare for a fight against someone who had spent his entire life learning how to kill. Olus found him in the corridor outside the chamber. The old keeper grabbed Daniel's arm and pulled him toward a service passage. They walked in silence until they reached the garden domes, where the sounds of the station faded into the rustling of leaves and the drip of irrigation systems. "Are you insane?" Olus demanded. "Probably. Grell will kill you. Not might kill you, will kill you." I have seen him fight. He enjoys it. He makes it last. Then I'll die. Daniel sat on a bench next to a bed of earth vegetables. Tomatoes hung red and heavy on their vines. But at least Earth will know I tried. Trying is not enough. Dead is dead. Olus paced back and forth, all four arms gesturing. There must be another way. We could petition Praxis to intervene. We could claim the challenge is illegal under modern law. Is it illegal? No, but it should be. Daniel pulled a tomato from the vine and bit into it. The taste brought tears to his eyes. It tasted like summer afternoons and his mother's cooking and everything he had left behind. Can you teach me anything useful in 2 days? He asked. I am a gardener, not a warrior. You've lived here for decades. You've seen fights. You know the species. Tell me what you know about Grell's people. Olus settled onto the bench. They are strong. Their bones are dense, their skin is tough. Pain does not stop them the way it stops others. But they are not invincible. Their eyes are sensitive to sudden bright light. Their knees, despite their strength, can be damaged if hit from the side. Their confidence is their weakness. They expect to win, so they do not protect themselves as carefully as they should. What else? They respect courage. If you fight well, even in losing, Grell might grant you a quick death instead of a slow one. That's comforting. They sat in silence for a while, surrounded by growing things from Earth. Daniel thought about the rescue missions he had led into mountains and canyons and collapsed buildings. He had faced death before. He had made peace with it, or so he thought. But those times he had been trying to save others. This time he was the one who needed saving. Will you help me prepare? Daniel asked. Olus looked at him with old, tired eyes. I will do what I can. But Daniel, you must understand. I'm helping you die with dignity, not helping you win. There is a difference. Maybe. But humans have a saying. It's not over until it's over. Humans have many foolish sayings. Daniel stood up, brushing dirt from his pants. 48 hours. Let's not waste them. They walked back through the garden, past plants from 100 worlds, all growing together in the artificial light. Daniel wondered if he would see Earth's plants again after the fight. He wondered if anyone from Earth would come here in the future to see what he had tried to build. Above them, through the dome's transparent ceiling, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, Earth waited for news of his success or failure. Daniel intended to give them a story worth remembering one way or another. The arena sat deep in the station's oldest section, a remnant from violent times. Daniel stood in the preparation chamber, wrapping his hands in the cloth Olus had provided. Through the walls he could hear the sounds of the crowd gathering. Hundreds of beings had come to watch the humans' final moments. The event was being broadcast across the station and transmitted to council member worlds. This was not just his failure. It would be humanity's failure, witnessed by the entire galaxy. Olus worked in silence, checking Daniel's simple protective gear. The rules allowed minimal equipment. No weapons, no shields. Just cloth padding over vital areas and the strength you were born with. Daniel wore shorts and a sleeveless shirt that left his arms and legs exposed. Next to him, he imagined Grell was being prepared in a similar chamber, though the warrior probably needed no help. Remember what I told you, Olus said, adjusting the wrapping on Daniel's left hand. Keep moving. Do not let him corner you. Go for the knees if you get an opening. And if none of that works, then die quickly and do not give them a long show. Daniel smiled despite everything. You really know how to motivate someone. A tone sounded. 5 minutes until the match began. Daniel closed his eyes and thought about Earth. He thought about the mountains where he had led his last rescue mission. Snow and ice and wind that cut through every layer of clothing. They had found the missing climbers, but too late. 3 people dead because they had pushed too far into dangerous territory. Daniel had blamed himself for months, replaying every decision, wondering if different choices would have saved them. He had quit rescue work after that. The weight of those deaths had been too heavy to carry into the next emergency. So he had studied diplomacy, thinking words would be safer than action. Now he stood in an alien arena preparing to fight for his life, and he realized something. There was no safe path. Life demanded that you take risks or accept defeat without trying. Another tone. Time to enter the arena. The doors opened and light poured in. Daniel walked forward into a circular pit 30 meters across. Sand covered the floor. Above, tiers of observation decks rose up in all directions, packed with alien species. The noise was overwhelming. Voices, clicks, roars. Sounds that Daniel's translator gave up trying to process. Across the arena, Grell entered through the opposite door. The warrior looked even larger in the stark light. Muscles rippled under gray skin. Scars caught the light like roads on a map of violence. Grell rolled his shoulders and cracked his neck, movements casual and confident. This was just another match for him, another easy victory to add to his record. Praxis materialized in the air above the arena's center, its crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. The challenge is set. Daniel Wright of Earth faces Grell of Tormus. 1 rotation. Survival is victory. Incapacity is defeat. Death is final. Both participants have accepted these terms. Daniel felt his heart pounding. His mouth was dry. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to run. The arena doors had sealed. Thousands of eyes watched him. Back on Earth, billions would eventually see this moment. He could show them strength or weakness. Those were his only choices. "Wait," Daniel called out. The crowd noise dimmed. Praxis pulsed with curiosity. "You wish to withdraw?" "No, I wish to speak." Confusion rippled through the observers. Grell stopped his warm-up exercises and stared at Daniel. Torvin, visible in one of the front observation decks, leaned forward with interest. "This is highly irregular," Praxis said. "But not against the rules," Daniel replied. "I'm allowed to speak before the fight begins, aren't I?" A pause while Praxis consulted whatever ancient protocols governed this situation. "You may speak briefly. The rotation timer begins when I signal, not before." Daniel walked to the center of the arena. He ignored Grell, ignored the crowd, and focused on the crystalline leader floating above. When he spoke, his voice carried through the arena's amplification system. "Before we begin, I want to tell you about something from Earth, a creature we call the honey badger." Silence. Thousands of beings waiting to see violence instead heard a story. Daniel could sense their confusion, their impatience. Good. Let them be confused. The honey badger is small. It weighs maybe 30 pounds. It's about 3 feet long. Compared to the predators it shares territory with, it's nothing. Lions outweigh it by 400 pounds. Leopards are faster. Hyenas hunt in packs. By every measure, the honey badger should be prey. Daniel started walking in a slow circle, addressing different sections of the crowd. But here's what makes the honey badger special. It doesn't care about measurements. It doesn't care about size or strength or what the odds say. A honey badger will fight anything. Lions, leopards, pythons, cobras. It has been recorded attacking buffalo. Buffalo. Animals 50 times its size. A few sounds that might have been laughter came from the crowd. Daniel ignored them and continued. The honey badger has skin so tough that bee stings and porcupine quills barely penetrate it. It can survive cobra venom that would kill most creatures. When it gets bitten, it might pass out for a few hours, then wake up and continue doing whatever it was doing. It doesn't know how to quit. Grell shifted his stance, clearly wondering what this had to do with anything. Daniel turned to face the warrior directly. "I've studied the species here at the council. I've read about the great warrior races, the Draken sovereignty with their strength and cunning, the Tormus war clans with their discipline and ferocity, the Kryn battle swarms with their numbers. All impressive, all deadly. But you know what Earth has that you don't?" He let the question hang in the air for a moment. "We have the honey badger. And humans, we're a lot like the honey badger. We're small by galactic standards. We're weak compared to most of you. We die quickly. Our lifespan's nothing but a blink to species that live for centuries. By every measurement you use, we should not have made it to the stars." Daniel's voice grew stronger. "But we did make it. You want to know how? We didn't stop when things got hard. We didn't quit when the odds were against us. Humans crossed oceans in wooden boats not knowing what was on the other side. We climbed mountains because they were there. We explored frozen wastelands and burning deserts in the deepest parts of our seas. We split atoms and decoded our own biology and built machines that carried us beyond our world." He pointed at Grell. "That warrior has fought 300 matches. He's never lost. Everyone here expects him to win. The betting pools, I'm told, don't even offer odds on my survival. It's considered certain that I will lose." Daniel spread his arms wide. "And you know what? You're probably right. Grell is stronger, faster, and trained for this. I'm a diplomat who used to lead search and rescue missions. I've never set foot in a combat arena. By every logical measure, I should withdraw. I should save Earth the embarrassment and my life the pain." His voice dropped to almost a whisper, but the arena's acoustics carried it to every ear. "But I won't because I'm human. And humans don't know when to quit. We got this far by being too stupid to understand when we were beaten, by being too stubborn to accept defeat, by having the mentality of a honey badger that sees a lion and thinks, well, let's give it a try anyway. The arena had gone completely silent. Daniel could see faces in the crowd, expressions that ranged from confusion to something that might have been respect. Even Torvin had stopped sneering. So yes, I'll probably lose today. Grell will probably break me in ways I can't even imagine yet. But I'm going to make him work for it. I'm going to show you what humans are made of. And when Earth sends the next diplomat, and the one after that, and the one after that, they'll all remember what I did here. They'll remember that humans don't quit, ever. Daniel turned back to Praxis. I'm ready now. The crystalline being pulsed bright white. Let the trial begin. Grell moved the instant Praxis gave the signal. The warrior covered half the arena in 3 huge strides, faster than something that large should be able to move. Daniel barely got out of the way, throwing himself to the side and rolling through the sand. A fist crashed into the ground where he had been standing, sending up a spray of sand that stung Daniel's eyes. No time to think. Daniel scrambled to his feet and ran. The crowd roared. This was what they had come to see. The small human fleeing like prey. But Daniel was not running in panic. He was creating distance, buying time to assess his opponent. Grell pursued, but did not rush. The warrior had fought 300 matches. He knew that prey tired itself out by running. Better to conserve energy and corner the opponent when exhaustion set in. Daniel could see the calculation in those black eyes. This would not be quick. Daniel reached the arena wall and pushed off it, changing direction. Grell adjusted smoothly, cutting off the angle. The warrior was hurting him, using the circular space to limit options. Smart. Daniel had hoped for a less experienced fighter, someone who relied purely on strength. Instead, he faced someone who combined power with tactical thinking. You run well, Grell said. His voice was surprisingly quiet, meant only for Daniel. But this arena has no exit. Just getting warmed up, Daniel replied, though his lungs already burned. Grell lunged, faster this time. Daniel tried to dodge but was not quick enough. A hand caught his shoulder and spun him around. The grip was like being caught in machinery. Daniel felt bones grind together. Before he could react, Grell's other hand grabbed his throat and lifted him off the ground. The crowd noise became deafening. This was it, the end. Daniel's vision started to narrow as the pressure on his throat increased. Grell held him at arm's length, studying him like an insect. Daniel kicked uselessly, his feet hitting armor-hard abs that did not even register the impact. Then Daniel remembered what Olus had said about the eyes. He stopped kicking and instead grabbed at his cloth wrapping, pulling it loose. The moment he had it free, he whipped it toward Grell's face. The warrior flinched. Not much, just a slight turn of the head, but enough. The grip on Daniel's throat loosened for a fraction of a second. Daniel used that moment to grab Grell's thumb and bend it backward with all his strength. Again, not much effect. Grell's bones were too strong, his tendons too thick. But it was unexpected. Warriors did not normally attack fingers. The warrior's grip opened completely, and Daniel fell to the sand, gasping for air. He rolled immediately, expecting a follow-up attack. Grell's foot came down where his head had been. Daniel kept rolling, putting distance between them, each breath like knives in his throat. His shoulder throbbed where Grell had grabbed him. The fight was less than a minute old and he was already injured. Clever, Grell acknowledged. Most do not think to target small bones. Daniel got to his feet, swaying. His vision was spotty. Most probably don't need to. True, you are at a disadvantage. Why not submit? I can make it quick, because that's not how this works. Daniel's voice was raspy. You're going to have to earn this. Something changed in Grell's expression. Not anger. Something closer to respect. The warrior nodded once. Very well. The second exchange was more brutal than the first. Grell came at Daniel with combinations, fists and elbows and knees flowing together like a choreographed dance of violence. Daniel blocked what he could and took the hits he could not avoid. A fist to his ribs knocked the air from his lungs. An elbow to his jaw made his ears ring. A knee to his thigh deadened his leg, but Daniel kept moving. He slipped inside Grell's reach and drove his own elbow into the warrior's knee from the side. Olus had been right about that weakness. Grell's leg buckled slightly. Not enough to drop the warrior, but enough to prove he could be hurt. Daniel paid for that small victory with a backhand that sent him sprawling. Blood filled his mouth. He spat it into the sand and stood again. The crowd had stopped roaring. They watched in something closer to silence now, disturbed by what they were seeing. The human kept getting up. Minutes passed. Daniel did not know how many. Time had become meaningless. There was only the next moment, the next attack, the next chance to survive a little longer. His body was a catalog of pain, bruised ribs possibly broken, cuts above both eyes. His shoulder dislocated, then relocated when he slammed it against the wall during a dodge. Every breath hurt. Every movement hurt, but Grell was slowing too. The warrior's breathing had deepened. Sweat darkened the gray skin. That knee Daniel had struck was slightly swollen. And most importantly, Grell was not smiling anymore. The warrior was working. This was not the easy victory everyone had expected. "You should be dead," Grell said during a brief pause. Both fighters circled each other looking for openings. "Probably," Daniel agreed. "Humans are bad at knowing when to die. I have fought champions of a dozen species. Warriors trained from birth. None of them lasted this long. They probably knew better." Daniel spat more blood. "We're a young species. We haven't learned all the rules yet." Grell attacked again, but with less precision now. Fatigue was affecting even his trained body. Daniel managed to avoid the worst of the assault and landed a solid strike to Grell's throat. The warrior choked and staggered back. Daniel pressed the advantage. He had nothing left to conserve. His vision was tunneling. His legs barely supported his weight. But Grell was vulnerable, and opportunities like this would not come again. He drove forward with everything remaining, targeting the damaged knee, the throat, the eyes. Most hits missed or glanced off. Some connected. Grell caught him by the arm and threw him. Daniel's back hit the arena wall hard enough to crack something inside. He slid down to the sand and could not get up. His body had finally reached its limit. He tried to stand, got his hands under him, and collapsed again. The crowd waited. Grell walked slowly across the arena, favoring his damaged leg. The warrior stood over Daniel, looking down at the broken human, who had somehow lasted nearly the full rotation. "You have fought well," Grell said. "Better than I expected. Better than most. Do you submit?" Daniel managed to push himself up on one elbow. His vision swam. "How much time left?" Grell looked up at the display. 4 minutes, then no." Daniel tried to stand and failed. "Not submitting. You cannot even rise. Don't need to rise. Just need to not quit." Daniel lay back in the sand, staring up at the observation decks. Thousands of faces looked down at him. He wondered what they saw. Probably a fool who did not know when he was beaten. But that was the point, was not it? Humans were fools who did not know when they were beaten. Grell stood there for a long moment, then sat down heavily in the sand next to Daniel. The warrior was exhausted, blood seeping from various cuts, his breath labored. "What are you doing?" Daniel asked. "You will not submit. I cannot finish you without descending to mere execution. We wait. You could win right now. Just end it." "I could," Grell agreed, "but it would not be a victory." "Not really. You have shown me something today, human. Your species may be small and weak by our standards, but you have something we have forgotten, that refusal to accept defeat, that stubborn insistence on survival. It is annoying, but it is also admirable." They sat together in the sand, two fighters too damaged to continue. The crowd did not know what to do with this development. This was not how arena matches were supposed to end. Praxis manifested above them. The rotation is complete. The challenge has been met. Daniel Wright of Earth has survived. The arena erupted in noise, but Daniel barely heard it. He lay in the sand, every part of him screaming in pain, and smiled. He had done it. Against impossible odds, with no reasonable chance of success, he had done it. Earth would get its chance. Humanity would be heard. Daniel woke in the medical bay 3 days later. His body was wrapped in devices that hummed and glowed, alien technology working to repair damage that would have killed him on Earth. Olis sat in a chair next to the bed, all 4 arms folded, apparently asleep. The moment Daniel stirred, the old keeper's eyes opened. "You are awake." "Good. The doctors said you would recover, but they are not always correct about human physiology." "Did we win?" Daniel's voice came out as a croak. "You survived. According to the terms, yes, you won. Earth's petition has been fast-tracked through the Council. Trade negotiations begin next week. Technology transfers are already being discussed. You did it." Daniel tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his ribs. How bad was the damage? 3 broken ribs, fractured shoulder blade, severe bruising across most of your body. Minor internal bleeding that has been stopped. Concussion. The doctors were impressed you stayed conscious as long as you did. Olus leaned forward. You should have died. By all reasonable expectations, you should have died. But I did not. No. You did not. Olus stood and moved to the room's small window. The station has been in chaos since the match. Everyone wants to meet you. Ambassadors who would not give you the time of day now request meetings. There are delegations waiting outside this medical bay. The footage of your fight has spread to every council world. Humans are suddenly very interesting to the galaxy. Because I got beaten up? Because you refused to quit? Because you made Grell, champion of the war clan, sit down in the sand rather than deliver an execution? Because you proved humans are either insane or possessed of courage that borders on insanity? Olus turned back to face Daniel. You have changed how the galaxy sees your species. Over the next week, Daniel received visitors. Some came to apologize. Kirek, the insectoid ambassador, presented formal regrets for the spilled drink incident. Other minor officials who had participated in mocking him now sought to establish friendly relations with Earth. Daniel accepted their apologies with grace, though he did not forget what they had revealed about themselves. Torvin came on the 5th day. The large reptilian stood at the doorway, clearly uncomfortable. Daniel was sitting up by then, still bandaged but healing quickly thanks to the alien medicine. May I enter? Torvin asked. It's your station. Torvin walked in slowly, moving like someone approaching a dangerous animal. I owe you an apology. I underestimated your species. I believed you were weak and unworthy of council attention. I was wrong. You were not entirely wrong. Humans are weak by galactic standards. We do die quickly. Everything you said about us was factually accurate. But facts do not tell the complete story. Torvin settled into a chair, his bulk making the furniture creak. I have been a council member for 30 years. I have seen hundreds of species petition for membership. Most fail because they cannot adapt to galactic reality. They are either too aggressive or too passive. They cannot find balance. I assumed humans would be the same. What changed your mind? You did. When you stood in that arena and told the story of the honey badger, I thought you were mad. But then you fought and you showed me what that story meant. Humans do not measure themselves against the odds. You measure yourself against what needs to be done. Torvin reached into a pouch and pulled out a small device. This is a complete database of Draken sovereignty technology, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, everything. I am transmitting it to Earth servers. No cost. No strings attached. Daniel took the device carefully. Why? Because the galaxy needs species like yours. We have become comfortable. We calculate risks and avoid danger. We have forgotten what it means to push beyond the safe path. Humanity will remind us, Torvin stood. Your petition has been approved. Full council membership on an accelerated timeline. Welcome to the galactic community, Ambassador Daniel Wright. After Torvin left, Grell visited. The warrior looked better than Daniel, his species apparently healing faster. He carried a small package wrapped in cloth. I bring a gift, Grell said, setting the package on Daniel's bed. From the war clans of Tormus. We recognize courage when we see it. Daniel unwrapped the cloth to find a blade, simple but beautifully crafted. I cannot accept this. I am not a warrior. You are exactly a warrior. Just a different kind than I was trained to recognize. Grell sat where Torvin had sat. I have thought much about our match. In 300 fights I learned technique and strategy, but I had forgotten why we fight in the first place. It is not about winning. It is about refusing to surrender what matters. You taught me that. I just did not want to quit. Yes, that is what makes you dangerous. Grell smiled, an expression that looked strange on his scarred face. The galaxy fears strength. They fear weapons in numbers and technological superiority. But what should truly frighten them is a species that does not know when to quit. That is the most dangerous opponent of all. The weeks that followed brought more changes than Daniel could process. Earth's petition was not just approved but celebrated. Human culture became fascinating to species that had ignored it before. Earth music played in station lounges. Human food appeared in diplomatic receptions. The garden domes expanded to include more Earth plants. Daniel received word that 3 more human diplomats were being sent to join him, along with trade representatives and scientists. The council held a formal ceremony to welcome Earth. Daniel stood on a new platform, one that had been raised to the same level as the other ambassadors. Praxis floated at the center, pulsing with colors that the translator rendered as pleasure. Earth is recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Daniel Wright will represent human interests in all council matters. Let all species acknowledge humanity's courage and determination. The assembly responded with sounds that might have been applause or might have been more complex expressions that Daniel's translator could not quite capture. He looked around at the hundreds of faces, the same ones that had mocked him a month ago. Now they watched with respect, or at least with the understanding that humans were not to be dismissed. Torvin approached after the ceremony, accompanied by several other ambassadors. We have been discussing trade routes through human space. Your location is more strategic than we initially assessed. Meaning we are useful now? Meaning we were fools to judge you by size alone. Torvin gestured to the others. These ambassadors represent the merchant collective. They wish to establish trade agreements immediately. Daniel spent the next hour in discussions that would have been impossible before the challenge. Technology transfers, cultural exchanges, joint scientific ventures, everything Earth had hoped for and more. The galaxy had opened its doors not out of charity, but out of respect earned in blood and sand. Later, Daniel returned to the garden domes. Olis found him there sitting among the earth plants that had grown stronger in the weeks since his arrival. You are leaving soon, Olis said. It was not a question. Earth is sending a permanent delegation. I will go home, make my report, probably get reassigned somewhere else. Daniel touched a tomato plant, feeling the familiar texture of leaves from his home world. But this place will always matter to me. This is where humanity proved itself. This is where you proved yourself. Do not confuse the two. Is there a difference? Perhaps not. You are human. Your actions define what humanity is to the galaxy. Olis settled onto the ground next to Daniel. There is a saying among my people. The first seed determines the forest. You were Earth's first seed in this place. You have set the pattern for all humans who follow. Daniel thought about that. About the weight of being first. About the responsibility of representing billions who would never know his name or what he had done here. It was heavy, but it was also an honor. What will you do? Daniel asked. I will continue tending gardens. Someone must grow food for all these diplomats who spend their time talking. Olis pulled something from his pouch, another purple fruit. For your journey home. Daniel took it and smiled. Thank you. For everything. I would not have survived without your help. You would have found a way. That is what humans do. On his last night at the station, Daniel stood at the viewing port in what had been his quarters. They had offered to move him to better accommodations, but he had refused. This room, small and uncomfortable as it was, had been his home during the hardest weeks of his life. He wanted to remember it as it was. Below, through the transparent floor of the observation deck, he could see the arena, empty now, just a circle of sand that had become the most important place in his life. A stage where he had nearly died but instead had given humanity its chance among the stars. His datapad chimed. A message from Earth. They wanted him home for a ceremony. They wanted to make him famous, a symbol of human courage. Daniel was not sure he wanted that. He was just a man who had been too stubborn to quit. But if his story helped humanity move forward, if it inspired others to push beyond what seemed possible, then he would accept whatever role they needed him to play. The stars burned outside the viewport, countless lights in the darkness, each one potentially holding worlds where humans might one day walk. Thanks to what had happened in that arena, those worlds were no longer unreachable dreams. They were possibilities, opportunities, futures waiting to be explored by a species that did not know when to quit. Daniel touched the window, his reflection ghosting over the field of stars. Somewhere out there, the honey badger was probably fighting something it should not fight.
Probably surviving when it should not survive.
Probably teaching the universe that size and strength were not the only measures of what mattered. He smiled and turned away from the window. Time to go home. Time to tell Earth what they had accomplished. Time to prepare for whatever came next. The galaxy had opened its doors and humanity would walk through them with the same stubborn courage that had brought them this far. Not because they knew they would succeed, but because they did not know how to quit trying.